Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Caster Couch. It is episode 4. The lower bracket has just wrapped up. Guys, that was an exciting end to things today, especially. I mean, day 2, I think, is what made me the most excited, but seeing how things have changed over the course of 10 games is massive.
I mean, that last game again, I feel like this tournament, we've talked a bit about the format, and I've had discussions with people that say it's too long, people that say it's too short, but this amount of games with like 10 games per bracket means like last game is always an absolute banger. And yeah, nice graphic, Chunks. We are here.
Thank you.
Day 5 is the next one. Day 4 is just done. And
That's why I had it just next
the
the end of day 4.
Yeah, it's nice. We'll have a look later who made it into losers bracket too, but we also have a big rip in Luminosity, that's for sure.
Yeah, that it's unfortunate. I think that most people will know by now what happened to LG, but we'll move on to that a little bit later. I think we should start off. I think we'll just do a recap. I think we'll probably start off with what happened earlier in day number 1, and then we'll work over towards the end where it got more and more exciting. And I'll be honest, first couple of games, Kovo, I didn't see too much happening. Obviously, in a shorter format, you're always going to see teams pop off early and slow down equally as quickly. But I feel like there are a couple of squads who really shone in day 1 that weren't really able to carry that over to day 2.
I think so, and I think Expendables, for example, were in second place after day 1, which was kind of crazy. But we'll have a look at some of the clips. There's not as many highlights as from day 2, that's for sure. And the main thing for me, obviously, Saga keeps calling me out for my EU bias, was sort of Entropic just getting pretty bad zones and performing pretty consistently. But we'll have a lot to talk about them in day 2, so maybe we just get into the day 1 clips.
Yeah, let's do it. Starting off, I think this is such a nice one to start on because, Alo, that's got a sting, hasn't it? Especially now knowing what ended up going on to happen to LG. That's a pretty rough spot to find yourself in. But Janba, nice little flick there, even though none of us can actually pronounce his name.
We've been going with Chewy on the broadcast, but I think we might just commit to that. But yeah, maybe that was just signs of things to come for Luminosity. Not really ideal for them in any sense throughout really any stage. Really think like not getting through groups just was a big problem for them, and like y'all were talking about, the unpredictability, I guess, of the teams in the losers bracket really played against them, and sucks that they're going home, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it just didn't feel good from them. We talked about it as well. We talk about it in the pick'ems and all the time. It's like at no stage did I feel like, all right, this is where Luminosity come back. They just didn't look consistent. They didn't look like very convincing in pretty much anything they've done. And then you add a few of those fails on top of that, like that one or Luke 12 peeking on single fire in, I think it was game 8 or 7 or something, and it wasn't their PGC. It's pretty brutal though. It's literally 32 teams. One of them goes home right now, and it being that 1 out of 32, I can't even understand like how that feels.
Let's just talk about LG a little bit because things started off really promising. Granted, that last clip didn't do them justice, but maybe this one will make up for it a little bit. The vehicle send coming out from them, eliminating Gen G, who, I mean, anyone who watched the past 2 days of games will know that those squads did not stop. They were head to head with each other for the entire bracket.
Yeah,
that feels like if things had gone differently, maybe in the final game or in the games before that, that was a clip where LG would look back on that and just splattering Gen G and be like, maybe that was the sign of things to come. But in the end, I guess it is Gen G who gets the last laugh, but it's not like a convincing laugh because, again, once we've gone through like the lowest bracket 2, we've got the winner chicken dinner format. And coming 15th place in the lower bracket means that they only get 1 chance to win a game. I mean, they've been in a similar situation to that before, and Gen G has some clutch factor to them for sure. Like historically, they've been able to pull off crazier stuff, but it's not good. It's definitely not ideal.
and it's one of the most dominant teams on international events historically. Maybe the most successful team in PUBG is Gen G, and they are absolutely bottom of the barrel right now. They did not look good anywhere. They barely, with Azura swimming into Primorsk, they barely clutched their way ahead of Luminosity. Like, Luminosity did not look good at all, and Gen G just barely beat them. They should be devastated, but Azura was laughing as he was swimming into Primorsk, so I'm not sure if they're just still in good spirits somehow. But I think nobody had them in a 15th place coming into this tournament.
Saga? No, I was just going to say, it feels like Gen G, they always have such high expectations in every tournament just because they're historically so good. And it feels like a lot of the time they leave it until that final moment to start shining. And I wonder that if in a format like this, they can really, do anything to change what started. It's going to get harder from here. There's no easy fix. They have to make the most out of that one game that they have to make it through to the next round. And, a former Gen G player who I think has popped off this losers bracket is going to be Pio. But I got confused with the clips. I thought this was a different one. This is NailUp. Let's talk about Entropic, shall we, Kovo? Because I know you wanted to talk about them.
I mean, they played really, really well on day one. They got bad zones most of the games. This is the game where they actually got a pretty gifted zone. And there was someone in my chat was like, all they're really missing is a NailUp moment, and that right there. I think he lasered 4 people in a row, almost knocking 4 of them, knocks 3 of them.
That was really good for your fantasy team, wasn't it?
Well, I thought I had NailUp on my fantasy team. Turns out I had Lucarook, so that was pretty sad for me, to be honest.
That's rough.
But at least they're coming into life. They looked pretty damn bad in the groups, and now they look pretty damn solid. They still had a few question marks every now and then where they die super early, but super consistent games coming out of them, looking like exactly the Intrepid we know. We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, let's take a look at the standings after that day, though, because obviously most of what happened was over there in day number 2. This is it after day number 1, and Entropic seemed like they were going to be unstoppable, but it was always close. It was never easy for them. When we look at Expendables, Pero, Sonics, it's so few points. It's 10 points all the way down to 5th. So I think Entropic knew going into today that it wasn't going to be an easy ride for them.
All right, I'm bored of talking about EU teams. Let's talk about the Expendables a little bit, because we're talking about teams like Gen G that we didn't expect to be in the position that they were in. I don't think anyone coming into PGC looks at the Expendables and goes, damn, what a team of cracked individuals. Like, APAC, their results have been whack. Even in Vietnam, like, they've picked up the occasional win, but sometimes they struggle to even qualify for like international events. But they're really coming out and are looking pretty consistently good. Obviously, it's a losers bracket, but they looked good in groups as well, just barely missed out. So it's a team that we kind of have to look at and think maybe we do fancy their chances of getting one of those 4 slots, the direct qualification to the grand finals in the next round, if they can continue on this level. But they are, again, one of those APAC teams, and I think Buriram is like exactly the same. We say, like, we think of APAC, we think of aggression, we think of crazy, like, coin flippy 50-50 send plays where it could either win the game or throw it. And Buriram has been doing a lot of that too, but so far it's sort of worked out in the lowest bracket. Maybe that's just strength of the lobby thing, but them picking up 2 wins has been huge. But playing the way that they did to get those wins, I'm not sure that's going to be a play style that has longevity when it comes to maybe a slightly stronger lobby like we're going to get tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think that going into that next lobby, there are a couple of teams that I'm excited to see. One of those squads is actually 22 Esports, because it feels like they are a squad that coming into things, everyone kind of had hopes for, but no one really had high expectations, if that makes sense. It wasn't so much people didn't want them to do well. It was more so they just didn't expect them to do well. And I think that they've proven over the past 2 days that they can, hang it with the big guys. They can put in some work. And I mean, just look at this pre-nade coming out from Haven.
It's clean. And Haven's had not only that in this game, he also managed to clutch up the 1v1 versus Kuba after. But when we speak about that 1v1, we also have to talk about, look at the minimap right now. Look how much zone control 22 have, and they completely throw everything away taking a 3v2 here close range and getting traded out equally, going back into a 1v1 with suddenly good winning chances for Entropic. So not the clean, calm, and collected gameplay you would want. And if you give me the screen share here for a sec.
Oh, forgot about that.
I want to talk a bit about this. And let me just try and do that. There we go, full screen.
Oh, what a surprise, Entropic is highlighted. Carry on.
I mean, they literally fucking.
I know. Keep going.
Okay.
It's fine. We're used to it by now.
All right. I'm a fanboy. I will admit that. I'm a little fanboy. And this is the game that we've just seen end. And Entropic is nowhere to be found. Far east, they have a random brew player just sitting on a mountain in the middle of nowhere, knocking Lukarooks as well. And they somehow consolidate from this, right? And they come into zone and everyone's like, well, it's not looking good for them. They're on the far east. We know it will shift away from the mountains. We know it will go away from this stuff in the long run. So Circle's either going west or it's going north. It's pretty much what everyone's expecting at this point.
Just do me a favor. Highlight Teraton 5 for a second.
Teraton 5 on the north. Oh, they full grief. Yeah, they're
yeah.
a good team.
I don't understand why they sent RJR into San Martin this early. Look at how much. There's no one contesting anywhere on that plateau. They could have quite easily held way more space than they did.
Anything you can do from here, you can do from up here. Like what?
Right?
What is the point?
That could have been big for them holding out. Entropic potentially like playing on the ridge line behind the wrap play. They just weren't expecting it, and they definitely weren't expecting this shift back. But it worked out pretty well for Entropic.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting shift. This is the phase 4 coming in, and there's a pretty small chance that this phase 4 ends up in the southwest as well. So you're like sort of polarized between southwest and northeast, but it's much more likely to go northeast. And if it goes northeast, Teraton 5 should win the game for free, but they completely troll. And Entropic sort of scrapped their way into it from being far outside the circle, far away from the shift. Scrapped their way into it. GX play a pretty good game here out on the west as well, by the way, which is going to be important later on. But pretty much a game that Entropic could have gone out with 3 points, and everyone would have said, well, that's pretty much expected. Similar to a lot of games where they have pretty rough zones, but just sort of scrap their way into it, just take the chances that they get, and end up in a late game 1v1 that they could have easily won. But it's pretty much sort of the story for Entropic, I feel like, where they're really good at this scrappy salvage playstyle. And if they get the chances with teams like T5 blundering, or with teams like 22 almost gifting them the win, they look really damn good. The question is, how unforgiving is that middle bracket going to be? Because the quality is going to rise pretty hard, in my opinion. We've eliminated a lot of the teams that look very shaky, and it's going to get a lot harder coming into the next few weeks here.
Yeah, I don't see anyone finding this any easier for the rest of the tournament. I don't think anyone is feeling more confident as they go on, if that makes sense. I will say, though, there's a team that we touched on earlier who have really been feeling confident today, Saga. That's going to be Buriram. Let's just talk about this clip first, because it's huge.
Big man, Chexing with the Groza, with 0 bullets. Nordra runs it down big time. Look at that, like Nordra, like that. This is what we're talking about when it's like Nordra could have easily just lost in the game. If Long just peeks that smoke instead of healing, he obviously doesn't know that Chexing's out of ammo. But if he peeks that smoke, Chexing has absolutely nothing he can do. And Nordra just for some reason sprints it at a smoke. Maybe he got a call that he was low, but I mean, it's a cool looking win. We don't see it often that people completely run out of ammo and then iron sights a guy from behind a rock. So it was a big clutch from Chexing, but this is what we're talking about when we say like APAC coin flip plays, where it's like Nordra could have won that gunfight. He could have won the game there and then, but by losing it, he very damn near lost his team the game by just getting over aggressive. And that sort of thing is very unlikely to work if we're putting a lobby with teams like Cerberus, New Happy, Overpeakers, Question Mark, all of those teams back in the mix. It's definitely not going to be a sustainable way to play the game. But for now, we'll rock the colors. We'll say good job, boys.
Can you play that clip one more time, Chunks?
Play it again.
There's
I've got it.
One or two things that I want to talk about as well.
Okay.
Because not only Does Chexing run out of bullets there? He also...
Oh, hold on. I need to hit
False
play
charge.
on that, don't I? There we go.
There we go. He's got 31 bullets now. It's a clean knock. Now he puts 20 bullets into a smoke,
Yeah, I don't know why.
which is already a little bit rough. And then what I think about here is Long has no chance to know that he's out of bullets, so that heal is completely fine in the smoke. But Long has a massive ridge. Look on the right there of Chexing. He has a big ridge to go left on. And instead, he flashes left and runs right completely into the open. And that's where, you know, it doesn't matter if he has an Ironside M4. He's got the cover and Long is completely in the open. So not a clean game by anyone involved. Noadra runs it down. Chexing empties his last clip into a smoke, and Long just runs into the open. I think it shows that spirit of this lower bracket a little bit. There's an insane amount of skill still, but it's not just as clean as we maybe saw in the winners bracket or in Group A.
No. Speaking of messy fights, I think there's one we need to talk about here. And Kovo, I know how much you love EU, and I know this is going to hurt you to watch, but I think we have to.
Oh, no. Oh, jeez. There's so much to talk about here as well.
Let's start unpacking then, because I want to know where this went wrong.
We've had like a 7-minute discussion on my watch party about this, and I think that the main thing is it's a lot easier to play for Pero than it is for FaZe. FaZe should win this any day of the week. But throwing this for FaZe is a whole lot easier than it looks like, because as soon as you get into that situation, feel free to play that clip one more time because there's a lot going on. As soon as you get that into that situation where they're peeking down on you, you're trying to line up nades, and AT is like, well, guys, I'm holding for you. You guys go nade. Gustav is already caught. Now AT is the one holding, but because he's the only one holding, he gets 1v1 and gets absolutely shit on. So it's really, really easy with all that high ground to get headshots because basically the entire body is covered by the head, and it's really hard to do the reverse from low to high. It's still an absolute pain. FaZe could have stayed inside longer. They could have used the windows of the church. They could have tried to push up the tower. They could have even, there's a roof under the roof in that church that you can climb into and then get out the back window. There's tons and tons of things they could have done. Tons of things that could have worked. And what we ended up with, absolute shambles.
Relied on the numbers advantage.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're all 4 peeking with guns in the open, you have a solid chance to win that, right? Like, even if you're just fully taking on us, you have a chance to win that. The way it played out, they're not going to be happy about that. But
they got good timing with the peaks while there was grenades in hand over and over again. Then the important one, like 80, who was holding the angle, they got the win. I still don't really understand how Fex even got a knock back at that point. He literally threw a grenade and then like spat a bullet out or something and killed it. I don't know where it came
It's like
from.
He's pulling out the AR out of his backpack and suddenly the enemy's knocked and I'm just like, what? Like, what the how? But yeah, I mean,
slot one gamer right there, pulling it out from over the top.
True.
Pulls the trigger on the way down.
It's not looked pretty in any game for FaZe, but then at the end they still end up getting points and they still end up climbing that leaderboard. So they're fine for now.
Yeah.
But just by the feel of it, it's felt terrible for FaZe, for me at least. I haven't had a game where I was like, that was clean, that was dominant, nice. And I've had lots of games where I was just like, what the hell is going on?
It's been a bit all over the place, but we were talking about FaZe just pulling out weapons from the back and just cracking people. I have a prime example of that right now, and I'm gonna turn the clip volume up for this one, so apologies if I deafen anyone, but I just want to see Kovo's reaction live to it again because it was brilliant.
I was like commentating this. I was like, oh, he's got 6 more bullets. That's a Mirado, there's a chance he hits it, and then I'm like, what are you doing? 3x spraying on that range. And yeah, I mean, we understand now why he's 3x spraying on that range. Savior just dominates him completely. And I think Bagopar actually got 2 up here, which I thought was surprising because right now they were 3 down. But yeah, it's a scrappy situation. It's again, rocks are pretty strong, and a solo on a rock can pretty much just dominate a team. And I mean, SSR is cracked, but we know that we've known that for a while, I think.
Yeah, I think Bagopar, you mentioned that was impressive. I'm ready for another transition here. I can't wait. Bagopar, they had some impressive moments, but this is probably one of the most impressive moments that I've seen so far. Let's go with a wipe transition to open this one up. The nade usage is strong right here, and in Tropic, it really didn't go well for them, did it?
It's pretty much what you sign up for when you take that shack, and they took it very early because they had no other play, and they got there cleanly. They're not going to be sad about that game, but obviously it just looks nice. Everyone's just burning. Evas gets knocked on the doorstep as well, so no one can even get out, even if they wanted to. It's just nice. It's good PUBG.
And with the colorblind settings or Korean mode, whichever they're using on the stream, it was like the Molotov was in home colors for Entropic as well. So it, was, it looked really nice. See that going down. But that was actually, 4 kills for Pio in that engagement. First one with the grenade, 1 holding the door, 2 died to the Molotov. They qualified in 8th by 3 points. So that little squad wipe on Entropic got BeaglePa away from the chicken dinner format for now. But
roll the next clip, Chunk.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
So
like,
7th place,
it wasn't just
for
that
Luminosity, but now just 2.
Yeah, let's pause it right there. Let's just pause it about where should we go? Like,
that's
like as soon as it leaves his hand.
BeaglePa qualified by 3 points. I just said. Look who's in 8th right now. 22 esports, 4 alive. They have the compound. They've had the compound for the whole game. They are going to get very close to qualifying. And Haven is pushing the shack with a nade again. We've seen what he can do with a nade. He's pushing that shack for a nade. He's getting aggressive. 22 wants to take some kills before they have to leave their compound. And now you can roll the clip.
So 7th place for Luminosity, but now just 2 points behind Gen G with 1 game left to play. Haven first nades himself, then he flashes himself, trying to make a play here, but it's not exactly going the way that he would have wanted it to, and that nade should be the death of him indeed. Yes, he got a
point for BeaglePa. Team that's right next
to 7th place for Luminosity, but now just 2 points.
Continue to not win the game, but get a 2nd place because of it. He was massive for them in that Miramar game. He was massive for them versus Entropic and versus GX. That was a massive throw, and it sucks that it's such a small moment, but it cost them quite a lot of points, and when we talk about the scoreboard after, you'll see why that mattered quite a lot, actually.
So, I have a clip now, and it's kind of our final clip. It's almost a 2-parter. And this is heartbreaking. We spoke about LG a little bit on. And for anyone who isn't aware of the whole situation, for anyone who maybe hasn't watched, I will pause it real quick. You can see, look on the leaderboards over on the left. 16th place goes home. They are the first team eliminated from PGC. And right now, between 15th and 16th is 2 points. LG are the ones trailing and Gen G are just ahead. So all Gen G really have to do is just outlive LG and just go for that late game play. But then Buram decided no to that, and things didn't go too well from that point onwards. And first of all, props to the observers, because I know, Kovo, you were talking about how much you loved these shots a minute ago.
That is a sexy shot with the 2 brew guys cruising in. That's straight out of a movie. But maybe while we let this run, there was a situation before that, which I'm kind of biting myself that I didn't clip it and put it in the script. Purdy was ratting Ada early game and picked up an item just as Ada was running up on his way.
Oh, I forgot to clip this, yeah.
Drives away, and because of that, Ada stays alive. And now we have this bridge camp where Gen G end up getting traded quite a bit. It goes on forever. They keep fighting in the blue. And they come out with 1 member alive. If Ada would have been dead going into this, there's a really, really, really good chance that Brew would have wiped them here.
Yeah.
And that would have been LG going through. That is just one of these tiny little bit of a nuances that all happened in that last game. And there was so many points to that storyline where LG could have made it or Gen G could have failed, and it went the other way around. It was honestly pretty crazy, and it's not something we've seen even that much, even with the last game always deciding the winner.
The butterfly effect is pretty real in a game like PUBG. Literally, Purdy Curti picking up a shotgun in a warehouse miles away from where the zone actually ends is like a big part of the reason why they didn't end up qualifying for any stage beyond this point. They're basically just like on a Dubai tour with the lads right now. No more games to be played. So yeah, it's really crazy how just like the
wild.
tiniest things that you would really never even actually like think about can have so much of an impact. And it sucks that it happened in the game where they needed that to just not happen whatsoever. But they also needed the one surviving member of Gen G not to do this.
Yeah, this is a rough one. I mean, we talked about the situation in terms of points. In the end, it was only Asura who managed to get out of Fairy Pier safely and actually managed to go and get into the zone. And then he goes and does this. Not only does he take down Luke, he also does a bunch of damage to the player next to him as well. And then at that point, he just had to wait. He spent the rest of the game healing. And eventually LG fell, and that was it. It came down to 4 points.
Yeah, that was enough damage. And I mean, him making it in swimming while getting shot at by GEX is also pretty ironic. And then him, we see the face cam. He gets headshot by a mini while in the water. He can't heal. He's out of breath. He has to dip up and down. And they put on his face cam. It's all blue because he's in the water, and he's just sitting there smiling. And
yeah, he's having a great time.
What the hell is going on? Even in that clip, 119 pulse. That is what, you know, Waikiki Mukau has when he's clutching like when he's in the training mode warming up or something. That is very calm and collected for Gen G in a situation where they have no reason to be at all. That is where you should be absolutely pumping. But I mean, it works out for them in the end.
It's kind
I'm
of
not
like
super hopeful about their chances, but
yeah,
man,
accepting
that's
his
a story
fate
and a half.
at that point. I think they knew that, you know, after the time that Buriram kills 3 of them, they're like, we're not closing a 10-point gap. We're not getting out of 15th. And we can't really do anything about the situation we're in. We just got to hold our breath and hope for the best is basically what he went for. And I don't think he was even expecting to like get to shore, and definitely not to find an opportunity to dog down Luminosity and make sure that they weren't able to get those extra points. But silver lining, I guess, but it's a very, very thin one considering their chances and what they actually have to do now going into the Grand Survival on Monday.
Yeah, let's take a look over at the teams real quick, shall we? Kovo, I'll let you finish your point, though, while we pull this up.
It feels a lot better to be 15th here than to be the one team eliminated, but realistically, it's very
practically
close.
The same.
You get Gen G gets 1 chance, Tianba gets 2, Donuts gets 3, and everyone above gets 4 chances, if I have my maths right, in the winner chicken dinner phase. So the real sort of predictable chance is Baigopa and up. They're fine. They're playing middle bracket. That is completely reasonable still. Playing 1 game in the last chance stage, or they call it Grand Survival, but it's the same thing. For a team like Gen G, that is an absolute fail. For a team like Polish Power, playing 4 of those, it's whatever. For a team like the Donuts USG that get a free pass onto PGC every year because they're the Japanese team that does well, sure. But for a Gen G, they're like a giant in PUBG esports. And I do not expect that lineup to stay anywhere close to what it is right now, because it's not been pretty.
I'm going to say it. If there's a team that does it in that 1 game, it's Gen G. I know that's like the most caster curse thing you can possibly say. But can you disagree with that?
It feels like it's on the cards, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it just feels like the kind of thing that
and
they
then
would
they
do.
win PGC, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
I could see it.
Comes over, gives Anonyx a kiss, and that's like the boost that they need. And then it's just, it feels like it's the only way. I mean, it's literally the only way that we can see them in the grand finals. But I don't know. It just, you can just sort of sense that there is actually a chance that it could happen. And for basically all the other teams as well, 4 games is not good odds. I mean, how many? Let's just have a look at the first 4 teams from this lobby. So if that was the case, the very first game, if we were playing winner chicken dinner format, Donuts have gone through because they won the first game of this lobby. Sonics, Expendables, Petrichor Road, that's the top 4. That's it. Everyone else, so the teams like FaZe and Tropic, Buriram, who had like a pretty solid time, none of that would matter, because you didn't win the game when it counted the most. And for Donuts, it doesn't matter that they did nothing else after winning that 1 game because they've already gone through. So yeah, chances are really, really slim. So for the teams that have made the top 8 and got themselves into the losers winners bracket / winners losers bracket, or the upper middle bracket, or bracket 3, as I think is just the simplest way to call it, they really have to make the most of their chance and get the top 4. But the competition that's coming down from the winners bracket is going to make that very, very difficult.
I think that's a pretty good point as well, because there is teams that have really struggled to close out a game, and Tropic is the highest point team, sort of, or at least consistently. I guess they got tied by FaZe in the end, which really didn't feel like it, but FaZe and Tropic both not winning a game, and also both teams that we could easily see not getting top 4, because top 4 in that lobby is going to be absolutely hard. We can have a look at the teams that are going to be playing the losers bracket 2, as PUBG calls it. I think middle bracket is maybe a good way to call it. Whatever. That is a stacked lobby.
Yeah.
Getting top 4 in this is going to be so much harder than top 8 in what you just got. And a team like Apero, for example, I feel like is one of those teams where you're like, well, in 4 games, they have a pretty solid chance to win a game, because all they do is send center and shoot a lot of people with barrels, and then they win a game because of it. A team like Entropic that always takes their fights on the edge, always struggles a little bit, loses a player here and there, I'd be damn scared for them. And similar things for a lot of teams in this lobby. So it's going to be exciting, and sure, you have the grand survival, but everyone's just going to be so upset if they don't make top 4 in this losers bracket too.
I would like to ask you both now, if you were to just look at this, how many of them do you say win? How many of these squads do you think can actually go and win a global championship? And how many would you look at the logo and associate that with? Because, look, we've got squads like Sonics who have done it before, but over the past year, it feels like it just hasn't been what they're used to. If we look at their past performance compared to recent, it's not there. But then you look at squads like New Happy, who have continued that dominance from last year. You look at squads, even like Cerberus, and I know it might be crazy to say, but looking at their performance over in last PCS and now coming into PGC, that's a logo that I see, okay, on a good day, they win that championship on that final set of games.
There's definitely outliers here. Like, coming into the event, if you were to show this graphic before the event started, everyone would be like, are you dumb? New Happy and Petrichor not in the grand finals by this point. Are you serious? Like, teams like, FaZe, Sonics, up and down, maybe the people would sort of agree with that and be like, yeah, that's fine. But those two in particular are the standouts. I think, like, regionally, again, like, Sonics, question marks, both done really good things in their region, but when it comes to global, maybe giving them like favorites to win a championship is pretty slim. But I think there's a lot of teams in this lobby that at the very least can get like top 4, top 6 in the grand finals pretty easily on a good day. Even teams like Overpeakers, BBL, who are basically coming in with nothing to lose, they can come in and actually do something pretty solid in the grand finals.
I would have maybe put New Happy in there before, but they haven't looked convincing at all. They haven't looked that strong. They're in the they didn't make it through the winners bracket. Sure, they at least went into the losers bracket 2 without the lower bracket, but no one on that list looked like a team that wins PGC. But I think we've realized at this point that the storylines are pretty crazy, and the up and downs even in the middle of this event have been pretty crazy. If you're just looking at numbers, I think Na'Vi got first in their group and first in the winners bracket. So you could say they're a strong contender, but even then, I feel like there is a really solid chance that Na'Vi gets top 8 maybe. There's a solid chance that they play mediocre and they don't really click to the same level. It's from a mere PUBG gameplay standpoint, I feel like this has been the best international in quite a while, because the top teams are extremely fucking good and they're also really close. I think sort of the top 8, somewhere around that, is really, really close.
Yeah, it's up in the air, isn't it? But you know what I'm going to say is I think that the APAC teams are actually going to kind of surprise us. I think that going into the next format, and this comes down to kind of the differences in the regions. And I think that APAC, it feels like they're so used to playing a tournament for these long periods of time, whereas that doesn't so much exist in EU.
Nuts.
Yeah, like when we look at EU and Americas, you're used to playing 2 weekends in a row when it comes to like the finals and playing against the same teams. Sure, you've got group stages, but can they really count?
5-day break.
Yeah, exactly.
Like...
Whereas I really do think that now that we get into the nitty gritty and we get into those final stages, I think that APAC teams are used to having to adapt on the fly. I think that TE and Buriram could surprise us going into next round.
Playing 6 days a week for 3 weeks straight is pretty standard procedure for Thailand and Vietnam. That's definitely true.
It's crazy.
But I mean, even in that sort of system, it's inconsistent results for a lot of these teams. Like particularly Buriram is on the rise a little bit recently. Cerberus is like consistently they do like slap around Vietnam, and occasionally teams like the Expendables or teams like Genius Esport or BN United back in the day will pop up and win an event. But for the most part, it is these teams that are the most consistent in the long form tournament. So who knows? Hopefully that can come into effect in the next couple of days, and we can see a couple more of them joining Daytrade in the finals.
I'm hopeful for Daytrade. I think they're solid. I think they play really good, solid, quiet, relaxed PUBG. No craziness. No full clown cast sending into the middle and praying for eggs left. No losing 3 players in the first circle. You know, they play really, really good with PUBG, and I think they're one of my sort of top 5 teams. We'll talk about that more once we're done with this stage and the next stage. Finals are still 2 stages away, even though it feels like we've played so much PUBG.
We have.
I'm sort of, you know, I've just been watch partying for 4 days. I'm starting to get exhausted. I cannot imagine what it is for the players. It's a crazy format. It's a crazy amount of PUBG, but considering it's the one event in the year, I mean, I don't really mind it that much.
You have to test everyone to the max, don't you? Before we go, Saga, are there any other points you want to make? Do you want to talk about how good Buriram are again, or are you all done for the day?
No, I'll just say happy birthday, Flash. And leave it
oh, happy birthday, Flash.
23 years old today. One ancient fuck when it comes to the people that are popping off at PGC. But you know what, he's popping off too, so we'll give him his credit.
Okay, so that's it for the lower bracket. Episode 4 wrapped up. I know it was a bit of a shorter one, but I think that we managed to get everything covered. We'll see you all after the lower bracket, I guess. That is it for us tonight. Have a good evening, everyone.
YouTube.
Yep, subscribe, comment, like. It always helps.
Use creator code Chunks or Kowo or Saga.
Wow, that's
take your pick.
That's full sellout. But yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone for joining. It was a pleasure as always, and we'll see you next time. Cube Zoom.
Oh, Cube Zoom.